I wasn't a
That's
squatter.
from death.
Yeah,
Sounds
that
like
one,
we're
I
saying
can
we
see where
really
that
should
could do some
Yeah.
real damage.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
We're not quite
Hey,
live
everybody.
yet.
Good evening, welcome to the applicants, staff,
Chair?
board members.
Chair, we're not
Oh, I'm
quite live
sorry,
yet.
we're not on yet?
Yep.
I know, you said we were on.
It's a blue bar.
Oh, gotta.
Need to have the guy go.
Yeah. There it is. Not on YouTube. Yeah. It's two things, right? YouTube and Zoom are two separate things. They both need to be in it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brian, appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the applicants, staff, board members, members of the public. This is the October 1st, 2024 meeting of the City of Bangor's Planning Board. My name is Reese Perkins, Chairman of the board. Other board members in attendance this evening are Vice Chair Ted Brush, Mike Vasnet, Jonathan Boucher, Tricia Hayes, Janet Jonas, Don Mahar. Alternate member Jennifer King has COVID, and so she is not here this evening. Board members are volunteers from the Bangor community. City staff members here in attendance this evening include Planning Officer Anya Collette, Development Director, City Engineer, trying to get you upgraded. City Engineer Jefferson Davis, Planning Analyst Brian Scannell, and Assistant Solicitor Grace Innes. We thank them all for their help with this meeting. The Planning Board has multiple roles. First, we review amendments to the Land Development Code, which typically include either changes to the zoning districts or changes to text within the code. There are no code amendments or zoning changes on the agenda this evening. Second, we serve as the regulatory authority for land development permits, commonly known as site plan review. Site plans are reviewed to ensure compliance with city code as far as parking, driveways, stormwater management, lighting, landscaping, buffering, building location, environmental impacts, shoreline zoning, etc., as applicable. We also ensure the plan meets the dimensional requirements for the project's zoning district. We review larger site plans that trigger site location development for the main DEP as well. Some uses are conditional uses. We have one this evening that specific conditions and requirements are used to review the project. State statute also outlines the requirements for subdivision review, and the city has additional standards as to roadway and utility specifications. Subdivision is primarily defined as a development with 3 or more lots or dwelling units. The board ultimately endorses a plan that will go to the Registry of Deeds if the plan is approved. For more information on the city's codes and standards, you can find the Land Development Code on the city's website. When the applicant is asked this evening to present their project or proposal, they or their representative should come forward to the podium and provide a brief introduction to their application. Once the presentation has been made, the applicant should stay at the podium while we consider any questions from the staff or board members. At that time, the applicant may be seated and we will open the floor to public comments. If there are any comments from the public, we ask that the person come to the podium, introduce themselves, state where they are from, and indicate if they are for or against the proposal. Either way, it is helpful if you present your thoughts based upon the city code and or the comprehensive plan, as these are the primary documents we use to make our decisions. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand function to let us know you would like to speak, and we will bring you into the meeting. All comments and discussions should remain respectful and considerate of all others. Once public comments are completed, we will close that item to the public comments. The board will then deliberate on the proposal using the standards as applicable and act on the proposal. The board may approve or deny a project or may otherwise work with the applicant if there are compliance issues that could be addressed with modifications to the plan. The board may continue the application to a future meeting to allow the applicant to modify the plan or for any other reasonable cause. Once a project you are interested in has been reviewed, feel free to leave the meeting. but please be respectfully quiet so as not to disturb other board discussions. All projects, once approved by the board, must apply for construction permits with the code office. All approved projects need to be started within 1 year of our decision and completed within 2 years, although extensions for good cause may be granted through the code office. We thank all applicants for taking the time to present their project for our review. This process is important for the city's development and the direction of our future. No old business this evening, so the new business this evening on the agenda is the big item on the agenda, which is an application for a major site development, minor subdivision, and conditional use. This is at 759 Ohio Street, map lot R34-001-A. Land development permit application for construction of 6 units within 3 new buildings, 2 two-story duplexes with a total footprint of 2,448 square feet, and 1 one-story duplex with a footprint of 2,992 square feet at the property located at 759 Ohio Street in the low-density residential district. The applicant owner is County Properties, LLC. Staff has indicated the completeness of this application and that it is ready for board review. Fees are documented and paid. The applicant's standing is confirmed. Does the board have any concerns about these issues, or are there any concerns with conflict of interest this evening? Seeing none, I would look for a motion on application completeness.
Before you make that
Yes.
motion, I just wanted to add in a staff request that to the procedural background, as part of your motion, that you add that a pre-application meeting was held with the applicant on July 17th, 2024. So just adding about the pre-application meeting date to your motion.
So you guys know, when we do the application completeness, you'd read the 3 items that are below the procedural background. In addition to that, Planning Officer Collette would like to add in the pre-application meeting was on July 17th?
Yep.
Member Boucher?
I move the application was deemed complete on I move that a pre-application meeting was held on July 17, 2024. The application was deemed complete October 1st. The applicant paid all applicable fees, see Exhibit 3, and the proposed project is major site development, minor subdivision, and conditional use.
Excellent, thank you. Do I have a second on that? Member Basnet, thank you. Roll call vote on that. Member Basnet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Mahar?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so we have approval of the completeness of the application ready for review. So the next thing that would typically happen is the applicant would present themselves to the podium or on Zoom and give us an introduction to the application. I don't see an applicant here. Oh, I'm sorry, you're the applicant. Ray Shelley, right, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to use this for my own use too. I don't have a small version, but you all have copies of the plan.
We do.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair. My name is Ray Shelley Lazard, and I'm here to represent Glenn and his Jana Braley, and they are the owners of the proposed development here in the property. And as the chair pointed out, this is a minor subdivision, major site development plan, and the intent is to develop 3 new 2-unit buildings on this front portion of this property, and those are 2 two-story and 1 single-story building. There's currently 1 under construction and almost completed that was approved on that lot individually. I can't remember when, it was a while back. This past spring? June. Oh, June, okay. June, which is allowed without a permit. But once we came back to add some more buildings to this, it needed to come to you guys for review. So this is ultimately, the information provided was listed out on all the items that we needed to meet with the ordinance. And I think we've worked back and forth with the city staff to meet all of those items that were listed in some of their concerns. And I did want to note that one of the things in your board, in your review packet, it said that an easement was pending. That did get recorded, and I did include it on the reviewed plans that are here today for the sewer. So that item has been resolved. So what this will do is it will create 2 new entrances to this lot. There were currently 2 entrances before, when there was a barn and a building, a house there years ago. So they had a wraparound driveway. And one of the buildings is closer to the other road there. So that entrance is moved up a little bit, but the other one is existing where the existing driveway used to be. And that's where this is proposed to be, and that one will serve the additional 3 buildings. So the one that is currently being built right now will continue to have its own entrance there. We've connected the sewer, as I was saying before, into a manhole that is on the adjacent property with an easement. That's for the building being built that I recall. The remaining 3 will go to a manhole that is right off the road on Ohio Street, and that will go in, that's already connected into the city sewer, because during the road construction or reconstruction sidewalk project there, rather than interrupting the road again to get the sewer, and they put the manhole in for future use. So that's already there. So the 3 new buildings will connect into that, and the water will all go to Ohio Street, individual water lines to Ohio Street for each one of the buildings. And I think I've covered most of the basic stuff. I can take questions.
Yeah, there's lots there.
I'm sure there's a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
For sure. No, there's no sense of going all through all of it again, but thank you for
Yep.
the introduction. Stay on up if you would.
Yep.
I would ask Planning Officer Colette for any comments. Yeah, a couple things.
Just to reiterate, the sewer easement, with the condition that we had requested has been resolved. And I don't have any other comments besides that. I do just have a requested addition to your findings, and I'll bring it up once we get there, but just requesting that you add in an exhibit into the findings, but I'll get there when we get there. So.
We'll talk about it when we
Yeah.
get there, right? Yep, thank you. Board member questions for the applicant's representative? Seeing none, you can sit at this point, right, Shelley? We'll see what we have for public comments. I would recognize before we go to public comments, that Mr. Kime, who is here this evening, has sent in a pretty extensive letter, which we received today. I would mention, I don't know about the rest of the board members, but I thought it was a lot to digest in an afternoon. But hopefully you at least got a chance to read it. And I appreciate that and the thoughtfulness that went into it. And we also were forwarded, maybe through you, an email from Sister Barbara from the church and Father Murray, who is no longer at this local church, but still feels at least emotionally tied to it in some way or other. So thank you. So those are part of what the board members have seen. Do we have public comments beyond those? There's a hesitation, yes?
I did have a small addition to make to that.
Would you like to come up?
Yeah, gladly.
Please do.
Thank you. So, my name is Brandon Kime. I live at 721 Ohio Street, and I'm speaking here on behalf of Robert and Elise Miller, both of 731 Ohio Street. Angela Hilidoga, also of 721 Ohio. And I don't know, would you like me, and I need to apologize, Chair Perkins, in the letter I had sent, I referred to Chair Hugh.
It's fine, it
So,
changes, that's
yeah,
fine.
Please correct that for the record. So I don't know if there's time or intention here to reiterate some of what was in my letter. Would you prefer me not to, or?
Unless the board, I would rather let the board ask questions if they want to of you, than go through it all again. Like I said, it was fairly extensive, there was a lot in there.
Yeah.
I personally had a chance to get through it, and I feel like I understand it, so I don't need more of Mr. Khan going through this unless board members do. I would let you say what you briefly wanted to say, and then we'll let them ask questions if they have any of you.
That sounds great. So apologize for the last minuteness of it. There not a lot of time in between receiving the notice and the preparation. But one thing I did have a little extra time to do after I had written the letter. If you'll recall in the letter, there was I had included the aerial photograph of the proposed development site and the 500-foot radius around it that's stipulated in code 165.94. And, I had said in the letter that we didn't feel that the development was in keeping with the language of the code. But just to put some numbers on that, beyond just saying it doesn't feel like it, I might run out of copies before getting to the very end.
You can share.
Yeah.
I recall.
You can share if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, if you draw that 500-foot radius around the proposed site, and you just look at, and you include the parcels that are touched by that 500-foot radius, their total acreage adds up to 52.38 acres, and there are 52 units on it. That's both east end and west side of Ohio Street. I wasn't sure if maybe the statute should actually be interpreted as specifically what is within that 500-foot radius, not areas of the parcel outside of it. So if we're just talking about within that 500-foot radius, you've got 18 acres, 22 units, so that's 1.22 units per acre. So I think that, and we would also argue that, that is including the Meadow Farm development, which we believe was originally not in keeping with 165.94. But even if we include Meadow Farms within those calculations, you're looking at 1 unit per acre, or 1.22 units per acre. And we feel that does, set the baseline for what conformity should be. And with that being said, the 8 units that are proposed, I think that's very reasonable. But that should represent the maximum number of units at 759 Ohio. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Before Mr. Kimes sits down, I just want to give board members a chance, because it was an extensive letter. If you have any questions about his letter, which we got by email earlier today, now would be the time to ask. Okay, I think we're all set at this point. Thank you, appreciate your coming up.
Did just want to clarify for the people on Zoom,
Yep.
that they can also comment if they want.
Was there a raised hand or any interest?
No, sometimes people get confused though, so just want to make sure they knew.
Okay. I don't see that, so I'm gonna close public comment period. So we have a lot of motions of standards to go through for the board, but before we do that, I'd like to have the board members bring issues that they would like to bring up for discussion, concerns. Member Besna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I highlighted a few words here that caught my attention about traffic congestion regarding the school and students being dropped off and proximity of these new properties to that area. City engineer, have any idea what the impact of traffic would be on this?
It's 4 AM and PM peak hour trips. So that's no impact to Ohio Street.
So four,
4
okay,
4 peak hour trips in the
Okay.
AM and PM.
all right. They also mentioned possible street light being considered there. What's the city's position on that?
Is the traffic light would be at the intersection of this church and school? I guess, I mean, that, I haven't done the signal analysis warrant for that area. I would venture to say it meets no warrants for that. Certainly wouldn't meet any warrant for 4 PM AM peak hour trips. If that's something the abutters would like to have looked at, I can certainly sit down and talk with them, and I can go with them how traffic analysis warrants work. And it'd probably be pretty clear that it wouldn't meet any. But I can certainly meet, anytime you want to talk about that sort of stuff. I would, we have not done one in that stretch, but it's never been a need there. So, but I have not done one for this project. It's not needed for this project.
Thank you.
Other board members, comments? Member Boucher?
There was mention in the letter of it not being within this region for the site development. It's not in the growth boundary for Bangor, but it is on public utilities.
Right.
That's the word I was trying to grab. It is on public utilities. I looked at the ArcGIS and I looked at the comprehensive plan, and it's not in the growth boundary. Is there any background as to why the area right along the river, because across from the street from it for quite a few miles is in the growth boundary, but not on that side and not just in that narrow area?
Yeah,
Can you give any background?
The purpose of drawing it that way was to really protect the Kenduskeag and kind of prevent development close to the Kenduskeag. But that's not to say that development can't happen outside the growth boundary. It's just the purpose of having the growth boundary is to have lower density development outside that boundary. But, as you all know, we're just now starting off the process to revise our zoning to align with the comprehensive plan and the land use plan in that. So what you have to pay attention to right now is the current zoning on the property. This is an allowed use as it's provided that it's conditional in the current zone, and provided that it does have the water and sewer, so, which it does.
Member Boucher?
This is an LDR. I don't know if you've had a chance to review this, the document, the paper that he provided. In the findings, it provided that this did meet the acreage requirements for LDR, the amount of units that are being talked about here. This paper seems to be contesting that, and I don't know if we can.
So I'm not seeing anything on here that states the density for the current development. I mean, the current development is 8 units on I can't remember the acreage of the lot, but it's at least 8 acres.
8 acres.
Which is extremely low, which I think it would maybe be even below this 1 unit per acre. I don't know, I don't have that in front of me, but, so I would guide you to the site plan from the applicant, because I believe they noted that on there, the density. And the maximum density allowed in the zone is, sorry, it's 5 units per acre, so,
In an LDR,
in LDR,
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
so
this
it's,
use,
yeah, so it matches, it aligns, it's not out of,
correct.
yeah, exactly. Just wanted to make sure I understood back and forth.
Member Jonas?
Just a point of clarification on the GIS, it's 8.31 acres, this parcel.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's just under 1
Yeah.
per acre.
and they could do 5. Yeah.
So it is in compliance.
Yes, the zoning says the maximum is 5 units per acre, and they're under that, so.
I'll jump in and just throw my thoughts out there on this as well. Having read Mr. Klime's letter, email, I concur. I think he said something to the effect of previous negotiations and the planning decision went well. I know it took some time, and I know there's maybe a little back and forth, some of which I don't believe we were a part of. But in the process, I felt like in the end, things got brought together satisfactory to all the parties. So, you know, I look back on that positively, as I think you suggested. There was a comment made, and I see Ms. Miller, or one of the Millers is here on Zoom this evening, about trying to move the buildings away from Miller's property line and making this a requirement of the permit. That, I think that may have happened previously, hi Rick, that may have happened previously in the last negotiation of the previous permit. But that wasn't part of something the planning board did. That would have been something that you all would have concurred to together. And that is typically, our requirements are that the buildings meet the city code setbacks as required in the code, which I think they have done at this point. Paragraph 7, and I'm just numbering them by down through the your email, suggests that the first first 2 permits were issued incorrectly. You know, that it's not our place to adjudicate previous permits and whether they were applicable or not applicable, or should have been given or not given. And I sort of look to that being something that if you feel is incorrect, you should reach out to our legal department, and they would be the ones to speak with you about that initially.
May I comment or something?
Yeah, let me finish up, and I've kind of ended public discussion, and we'll see where we go from here. Paragraph 6 and 8 suggest that the Code 165.9 is in conflict with codes for the number of allowable units. I think we just discussed that a little bit. You know, we have been over 165.9 quite a lot as a board. I know you guys all are aware of that. Member Maher is nodding his head because he hates that code. I think that's your least favorite code in the book because it is so easy to be read so differently and is so lacking in specifics that it makes it almost impossible to make a determination one way or the other.
Right.
And we've had a lot of conversations about that, but nonetheless, the word used at the beginning of that code is general, and you know, my feeling, and these are my comments, not necessarily the whole board's comments, but it's a general requirement, and you know, because it can be viewed much differently, I don't see that being in conflict with the rest of our code, which specifically says what's allowed for numbers of units for a particular zone. Furthermore, if the applicant were to want to, which I think is part of your concern, entertain future units on this property at some time, that would be something that we wouldn't typically say you can't do now, but we would consider those future units at such time as the applicant decide to apply for those future units. And lastly, kind of on the flip side of all of this, I recall that when we approved the last permit, there was some discussion, and I think it may have been the Millers, but I'm not sure who said it. It was one of the abutters said that, you know, the buildings out there were basically white boxes. And I've been a contractor before. I understand, you know, you're trying to keep things priced reasonably and all that sort of thing. But beyond that, in that meeting, there was some discussion of possibly dressing up these properties in an architecturally, the facade being dressed up architecturally so that, and when I say this, I might mean something as simple as shutters, colored shutters, different colors on the buildings or something along those lines where we see, I go back to Ms. Lazat's pictures that are in the board members' packets, and when you see our buildings, many of which have shutters on them, many of which are different colors, including some apartments which have shutters in different shades of color in different areas of the buildings. And so I would like to think that we could further look into that and come up with some way of making these look a little bit more amenable to the rest of the neighborhood. And those are my comments, guys. Before we get to the standards, I am happy to have you all bring up anything else or question my thoughts or whatever. Member Basnet.
So going on your last comments there about sort of dressing the properties up a little bit. Anything here we talk about tonight is not binding upon the contractor, correct?
Not particularly true. I mean, we can create a contingency, a condition on the permit, which would require something.
You can also ask the applicant to come back at a later date with revised elevations or drawings of the architecture for you to review.
I think we went through the first iteration of this during COVID when we were all remote. Is that correct?
Could be.
And I believe we had several discussions along the lines of trying to meet an enhanced architectural appeal, excuse me. And I think we got there. I remember Mr. Kime, I think you were satisfied at that time. Are we doing anything differently this time that was not done last time? Is the building structure and design straying far away from what the neighbors had thought was acceptable? That's a question I don't have an answer to.
Would you like the applicant to answer that specific question?
If the applicant wants to answer that. I remember we took great care in discussions on it. It took a while.
Good evening, my name is Glenn Braley. I don't know, this, Shelley had this picture, this is the one that we've constructed at 759. And that's the backside, there's like a deck and porch on the backside. She doesn't have one on the front side, the front side has a roof out that extends over 2/3 of the building. So, I mean, there's other pictures here, like this would be the Millers. These are, I think that's across by the church. So, I mean, there are some that do have shutters and there are some that don't.
Right.
This is the back of the property right here?
Yeah, that's the back of the one that's on 759 right now. And the other ones would look very similar to that. We have changed the colors and the contrast of some buildings. And
You have.
yes, they're not all.
Are these the property we were talking about a few years ago? Are those your properties?
No.
Those are not your properties.
Oh, those are, I think those are up this, I think they're behind. These are out on Ohio Street. I
Okay.
think these are the ones up behind there.
All right.
Actually, you know what those are? Those are the ledges too, or something. Like
Okay,
that.
all right.
I don't think you even really see them from Ohio Street.
So I guess my question is, are we keeping in with the same theme of what you did last time?
Somewhat. But we've gone to this gives the people living in these buildings an area that they can, it's I think it's an 8-foot porch in the back by 20, the building's 36, so they're about 28 feet by 8 feet. And then on the front side, there's like I said, I wish we had a picture of that, but there's an overhang there. I mean,
I think we have architectural drawings of it.
So what you're saying is that maybe on some of the units, they have that back porch, and on some of the units, they have a front overhang over the door.
well, this would have both, okay? So, because where we are on Ohio Street, I mean, we're not that far off the street.
Right.
So my thoughts were that that would give them a place that's away from the street, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we did, which compared to what was in the other subdivision, it was,
So that's front,
yeah,
this is the back,
right,
where it has a
right.
more pronounced overhang.
Right.
Okay.
So you've got some, I mean, that, it's hard to tell, looking at that. That's like a 3-foot or 4-foot overhang.
3 feet right there, then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you got your lights underneath of it, and, I don't know. I mean, for what I'm doing, I've got to think about the economics of it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So,
That's, as I said,
and we're trying to do a good construction and good, I mean, that's,
yeah. I just remember that conversation from before, and I just
Right.
wanted to bring that up. That was,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so for the record, Member Basnet brought up the drawings of the elevations of the property, and the applicant showed us some pictures of the property, and we discussed the various architectural features of the property. I don't have any further questions, do you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The solicitor, Mr. Kime wanted to come back and, I think, speak on some of the things I brought up. I've closed public comment period, sort of.
You can
I can do that.
reopen it,
Okay,
yeah.
so Mr. Khan, would you like to come on back up, and you had some specific things? We're not opening this back up to a whole new conversation, but if you've got some specific comments or questions on some things that I said when I was listing off my issues there, fine, please do.
Certainly,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Just very briefly, I wanted to say that, my intent in providing those, the existing units per acre within the 500-foot radius and, the parcels touched upon by the 500-foot radius, those numbers actually do, essentially 1 or 1.2 units per acre. They work very nicely with the 8 units that are proposed right now. And really, with, apart from our, hope that one of the units could be moved a little further away from Bob Miller's property, the 8 units, that's okay. But the 42 unit maximum specified in the plan is what we consider erroneous in light of what the existing surrounding building density is.
If I can interrupt you just a
Oh,
second.
certainly.
I think what I just heard you say is 42 units allowed by the plan or in the plan.
Mhm.
I don't think it's in the applicant's plan. You're speaking of 42 units that would be allowed by code, given
Yeah.
the square footage or the square acres of the
And
property.
this is our concern, because, at the development that's now the Meadow Farms, started off with 10 units conditional use, perfectly okay. But then all of a sudden, another 34 units got added on, now we've got 44 units there. And I know that, 16594, I can see how that could be difficult to implement when it's actually your job to do that. But I see that as, it offers guidelines and then gives you some discretion within those guidelines to use your good judgment. And so, it's, I would say, if a, so 165.9, I think just very clearly shows that the maximum number of units on that lot and the number of units that should be allowed under a conditional use is well below the 5.1 that is the, potential maximum for a site within a LDR. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, again, I will just make it clear that public comments are closed at this point. Board members, if no further questions, I think we tackle the standards as you have in your packet, starting particularly with part one, which requires the project to meet the requirements of Articles 2 through 12. And I take a motion on item 1, Member Boucher.
I move the board finds, based on Exhibits 2 and 19, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code Section 165-33's requirements regarding filling, grading, and earth moving activities, and Section 165-33.1's requirements regarding erosion and sediment control best practices.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Jonas, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Item 1 is unanimous yes vote. Item 2, have a motion from Member Jonas on that one.
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2 and 8, the applicant satisfied the requirements of Land Development Code Section 165-65 regarding yard space for group buildings.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Hayes, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on 2. Have a motion on number 3. Member Brush?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2 and 8, the applicant satisfied the requirements of Land Development Code Section 165-68 regarding lot frontage.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that? Member Hayes, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on item 3. Item 4, have a motion on item 4. Member Hayes?
I move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2, 8, and 19, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code Section 165-72 requiring adequate parking spaces, Section 165-73 regarding parking area location, setbacks, and screening, and Section 165-74 regarding minimum design standards for surface parking and parking lot design.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one?
Second.
Member Maher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on 4. A motion on 5. Member Maher?
Yes, I move that the board finds that based on Exhibits 2, 11, 14, and 25, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code Section 165-78 and 80, requiring adequate connection to necessary utilities, including public water and sewer when possible.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that? Yes.
It's-
Do we have a question?
Yeah.
Member Hayes?
It's Section 165-79 and 80.
I thought I
You
said that.
78.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for the correction.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on that? Member Hayes, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on item 5. Motion on 6. Member Brush?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on Exhibit 24 and 8,
I think it's 2, 4,
I
and
think that's
8.
2, 4.
2, 4.
On the call line, yeah.
Exhibits 2, 4, and 8, the applicant satisfied the Land Development Code Section 165-81 requiring appropriate lighting in accordance with the regulations on intensity, direction, and height.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on item 6. Item 7, motion on item 7. Member Maher?
Yes, I move that the board finds that based on Exhibits 2 and 6, the applicant satisfied the Land Development Code, Section 165-82, requiring adequate fire protection.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that one? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
And Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on 7. Motion on 8, Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2 and 19, the applicant satisfied the Land Development Code, Section 165-83, requiring adequate electrical services.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on 8. Motion on 9, Member Boucher?
I move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2, 15, 16, and 19, the applicant satisfied the Land Development Code, Section 165-84, requiring provisions for surface water and storm drainage. Sorry.
Thank you. Second on that, Member Jonas, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on item 9. Motion on 10, Member Jonas?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on Exhibits 2 and 19, the applicant satisfied the Land Development Code, Section 165-85 and Section 165-86, requiring compliance with submitting information on anticipated sanitary flows and compliance with sewer regulations.
Thank you. Second on this one, Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All items in Part 1 voted on acceptably unanimously. Part 2, which requires the project to meet the district site development standards under Article 19. A motion on this one, Member Brush?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on Exhibit 2 and 8, the applicant satisfied Section 165-135 of the Land Development Code regarding height limits, floor area ratio, impervious surface ratio, and buffer yards.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous approval of Part 2. Moving on to Part 3, requiring the project to meet the requirements of Section 165-99, which is the low-density residential code. I have a motion on item 1. Member Boucher?
I move the board finds based on Exhibits 2, 19, and 25, the attached residential project satisfied Land Development Code, Section 165-99D, ones, requirements for acreage, dwelling, units per acre, code standards, water and sewer service.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Jonas? Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion on 2 of Part 3. Member Brush?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on the findings made in Parts 1 and 2 of Section 4 of this document, the first finding made in this Part 3, as well as Exhibits 2 and 8, the project meets the requirements of Section 165-99B for basic requirements within the low-density residential district, LDR.
Excellent, thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the items for Part 3 were voted yes unanimously. Moving on to Part 4, which requires the project to meet the criteria for a subdivision of land under Article 18. Do I have a motion on number 1? Member Boucher?
I move the board finds that based on the findings made in parts 1 through 3 of section 4 of this document, as well as exhibits 2, 19, and 25. The project satisfies the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-126F1 regarding compliance with 30 AMRSA section 4404.
Thank you. Member Hayes, I have a second on that one. Thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on 1. Can I have a motion on part 4-2? Member Maher?
I move that the board finds that based on exhibits 2 and 8, the project satisfies the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-126.F2 regarding the plat's conformance to existing zoning regulations regarding lot dimensions and areas.
Thank you. A second on that from Member Hayes again. Yep. And a roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on 2. A motion on part 4-3? Member Brush?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 8, and 19, the project satisfies the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-126.F3 through 4 regarding the adjacency of the lot to an existing street and the side lot lines having appropriate angles to the street lines.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Maher? Thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous on 3. Motion on part 4, number 4? Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the board finds that based on exhibits 2 and 19, project satisfies the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-126F6 regarding the plat containing all information required by section 165-126D.
Thank you. That's a tongue twister.
That was a little dicey.
Do I have a second on that one? Second. Member Jonas, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's unanimous approval of the 4 items on part 4. So moving on to part 5. Requiring the project to meet section 165-114, which is the land development approval standards. A motion on item 1. Member Hayes?
I move the board finds that based on the findings made in part 4 of section 4 of this document, the applicant satisfied the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-114.A regarding compliance with 30 AMRSA section 4404 and article 17 of the Land Development
It's
Code.
18.
18.
Oh, 18, I'm sorry. Didn't count enough ones there.
Thank you. Do I have a second on Member Jonas gives a second on that one? Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous approval on number 1. Motion on number 2. Member Jonas?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2 and
Can I
19.
stop you just a second on that one?
Absolutely.
This is the one
Oh,
that Planning Officer Collette wanted us to add in exhibits 2, 4, and 19.
okay.
So if you would,
May I start over?
please.
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 4, and 19, the applicant satisfied the requirements of Land Development Code section 165-114B through C regarding the proposed parking and loading layout and the proposed access drives from the site to any public right-of-way being arranged in a reasonable and safe configuration, including the provision for safe pedestrian travel.
Thank you. Second on this one? Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on item 2. Can I have a motion on item 3? Member Rush.
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 15, and 19, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code section 165-114.D's requirements for preventing adverse effects from runoff and ensuring there is adequate capacity of stormwater collection systems to handle runoff from the development.
Thank you. Member Boucher, did you have a second on that one?
I'll second.
Yep, thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on number 3 of part 5. Motion on number 4, Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 4, and 8, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code section 165-114E's requirements that outdoor lighting shall be designed, installed, and maintained to avoid unreasonable adverse effects from light pollution.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Maher? Thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on number 4. Motion on number 5, Member Maher?
Yes, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 8, and 11, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code section 165-114F's requirements for landscaping, tree preservation, and species type for plantings.
Thank you. Member Bazinet, a second on that one. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Item 6 of part 5. Motion on that, Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the board finds that based on exhibits 2 and 8, the applicant satisfied Land Development Code section 165-114G's requirements for building location and setbacks.
Thank you. And a second on this one, Member Boucher? Thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So unanimous approval of items 1 through 6 of part 5, which is all of part 5. So we move on to part 6, which requires the project to meet the criteria for a conditional use under item 165-9, section 165-9A. A motion on number 1, Member Boucher.
I move the board finds that based on findings made in part 3 of section 4 of this document, as well as based on review of exhibit 2, the project meets the standards and use conditions of the district in which the property in question is located, the low density residential district LDR, and that there are not any variance requirements or other standards that would impede the granting of this permit.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Jonas is up first, so that's second. And a roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous on item 1. Motion on item 2 of part 6. Member Jonas?
I wanted to
yes.
add in exhibit 4 to this
Number
one.
4.
Okay, got it. Okay. Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 4, and 19, that the project will not create unreasonable traffic congestion or hazardous conditions on contiguous or adjacent streets.
Thank you. And a second on this one, Member Hayes. And a roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
The chair votes yes, unanimous on item 2 of part 6. Motion on item 3, Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the board finds that based on findings made in parts 1 through 5, section 4 of this document, that proper operation of the conditional use will be ensured by providing and maintaining adequate and appropriate utilities, fire protection, drainage, parking and loading, and other necessary site improvements.
Thank you. A second on this one, Member Maher? Thank you. Roll call vote, Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, unanimous approval on number 3. A motion on number 4 of part 6, Member Brush.
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that based on exhibits 2, 4, and 13 through, and 11 through 13, that the proposed use, although not appropriate for every site in the zone, is appropriate for the location for which it is sought, because the proposed use will conform to the general physical development pattern of the immediate area as to architectural style, building bulk, and extent and intensity of site use.
Thank you. A second on this one? Member Maher? Thank you. A roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous approval of all items 1 through 4 of part 6, which renders us to the decision. And I would like a motion on the decision. We do not need on the decision the condition, which is in the last 3 lines of that. So we would end that after project, I believe. Is that correct? So motion on that one. Member Jones?
Mr. Chair, I move the board finds that the project meets the requirements for a land development permit for a major site development, minor subdivision, and conditional use, and therefore grants the land development permit for the proposed project.
Thank you. Do I have a second on this one? Member Hayes was first, second on that. Thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous approval of all items and a decision. So the permit is approved. And the next step for you all, I believe, will be photos.
The recording of the plan, once we sign it,
Why don't you come up, because I can't hear you.
the signed plan. needs
We will
to be
sign the
approved.
plans when we get done with the meeting this
Okay,
evening,
and then-
and they would,
You'll
Let
let
you
us
know.
know.
Yep,
All
we
right.
will.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so that concludes the review of that item on the agenda. The other business on the agenda this evening includes an update on the council vote on manufactured housing ordinance.
Yes.
Planning Officer Scott?
Just wanted to let you know that council did approve the amendment, and there were no other comments on planning board items.
Thank you. I'll add to that, I went to that meeting, I sort of felt like I should have spoken up. You and I kind of had some hesitation about that.
I think I watched that,
Did you?
yes. I think we need to make it clear that when a citizen says, we should do this, we should come and sit and discuss with a citizen. We can't do those things. And no one on the council said anything that we are not allowed to do those things.
Yeah.
So the planning board looks like we're not being
I
cooperative.
think you're talking about the meeting before that.
It might be,
But
yeah.
I get where you're saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they need to sort of stick up for us a little bit.
Well, not that, but people just don't know that.
They don't know that,
Yeah.
and it needs to be clear.
Yeah.
We're handcuffed to
Right.
a lot of things.
Right, good point, thank you. Yeah, so there really wasn't much discussion on that. I felt that maybe I should have stood up and said something, but we did have some hesitation. But anyway, it was unanimous vote to approve it. It was a unanimous vote by the council to approve it, so that moved on.
They didn't have any choice, really.
And we don't have any choice really, so that's that.
I'll note that I did mention your concerns and Member Bazinet's concerns in the decision memo.
They are in there. I actually expected, and that's why I kind of hesitated, because I thought often Councilor Trumbull brings that up and says, well, what was the reason they had some hesitation? He didn't this time, so it is what it is. But they will often ask, which is part of why I went that evening. But they did not ask that evening. Did you want to bring up the
Proclamation.
proclamation?
Yes. So Chair Perkins requested I read a portion of the proclamation regarding planning board. so I'm just going to read it out loud. The celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to recognize the participation and dedication of appointed planning board members who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Bangor. Just thought you would appreciate that.
It's always kind of nice.
Yeah.
Do you need a second?
We don't get past on the bag very often, so
No.
I thought it was worth hearing, because you all wouldn't have heard it unless you listened. But,
We'll take it.
you know, we got this proclamation that the month of October is planning month, or planning board month, or planning idea month. And, you know, they produced this proclamation, which I hadn't really looked at very closely until I got to the meeting that night, and then that was a part of it, and I just thought it was a nice, you know, thing to hear from the city council, that they do, although we don't always know it, they do appreciate the work that we do here.
I want to add also on that note, I think we said last time we were going to be at the Sidewalk Art Festival on Saturday. Partly for planning month, we're going to be, you know, pushing out our photo survey that we've just released. But the other purpose of that is to let people know about the land use code update process that's starting. And also, we are combining a little bit of the public engagement for that with our community development folks' consolidated plan process. So as part of that, we're going to be having, well, I'll say planning is kind of tagging on to their public meetings in November and early December. There will be various neighborhood meetings in those 2 months. And, you know, we're going to be educating them about the comprehensive plan and the land use code. And then also the consolidated plan efforts. And so we're kind of combining all of that into what we're doing at our table on Saturday. However, currently I'm the only staff person that's available to staff the table on Saturday. So we were wondering if planning board would feel, if any of you would feel or have availability at all, or would want to come help staff the table on Saturday. It is just an educational effort. You wouldn't be advocating for anything, you'd just be giving our materials out to people. And
Do we have to sign autographs or anything?
You might have to.
Oh, there we go.
You have to quote statutes.
It goes from 9 to 4.
So it's 9 to 4,
9 to 4.
so if
Yeah.
anyone could be there for a chunk of it,
Saturday?
any chunk of it.
Do you want to just send an email and maybe we can see what
Yeah,
we
that's not a
can?
bad idea. I'd be up there
I
with
would
you.
really like to.
Okay,
but-
great.
I could probably do like an hour or two, like, and I
Yeah.
bet other people would do something
Yeah.
similar.
Okay, yeah, I'll send an email out. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, meeting minutes, looking at September 17th meeting minutes, do we have any concerns with that? Member Basnet, none? Anybody else have any concerns before we go to a motion on that? I see shakings of the head, so, Member Basnet with a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of September 17, 2024 as presented.
Thank you. A second on that one? Member Jonas was first, thank you. Roll call vote, Member Basnet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
Member Marhart?
I wasn't present.
I'm sorry, thank you for pointing that out. And the chair votes yes, so approval of September 17th meeting minutes. And I have nothing else. Anyone else have anything else?
Well, I'm doing October 10th, I have it's the MMA is doing a program in Augusta that I'm going to.
Good.
Just putting it out there. I don't know if you had any feedback, maybe I'll do it after the meeting, just like to ask you like what I should like maybe think about preparing beforehand.
Sure. Member King is going as well, I believe.
Oh, nice.
I think that's one that's optional. You can do Zoom or attend in person, as I recall.
I was planning to go in person.
Yeah, I think in person's better because you get some feedback, just talking to other people that are there and stuff. I think the only thing that, I don't think you need to prepare. But I think you'll be conscious of the different processes that everybody has. We don't behave the same, and you guys could all search almost any city or town's website and find other planning board meetings and watch them, which would be probably incredibly boring, but a little bit interesting. I've done it. And we don't all run the same. And so it's interesting sometimes, some of the questions that ask, but some of the standard stuff that we talk about in training always comes up again. Don't talk amongst yourselves about stuff that we're in the process of dealing with. Don't talk to applicants or abutters before the meeting, even though they may want you to, and you may know them. That kind of stuff always comes up. They always tell you the same sort of stuff that we get in the training, but it's very interesting, I find, just to learn the different ways that, and they find us interesting because we're a big town compared to a lot of the other ones. There are a lot of people that go that are from small towns and they do a lot of stuff. Our staff, one of the things that becomes clear when you go to that is our staff does a ton of work for us that in small towns, the board doesn't. I mean, we're spoiled, really. They're paid, but we're spoiled. So
Be much different without them.
it would be a
Yeah.
huge, huge difference now.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you,
I
thank
think
you
it
to
was-
all our staff.
I bring that up every chance I get, how great you guys are.
Thank you.
Anyone else? It's 8:11, that's not bad. I say this meeting's adjourned. Please